the United States is, without a doubt, the most propagandized country in the world. Not even close. And when we get through this segment, you guys will see why. So I'm going to show you guys some things they say about China. And then I'm going to show you guys the funny exchange with Team Xi and Justin Trudeau, which was hilarious. The only thing that was probably funnier than that exchange was how Western media reacted to it. I don't know if you saw it, Margaret. I want to show you. I would love to see your reaction to one of these segments I'm going to show you. But now this is the kind of example of straight out lies they will tell about China. The biggest purveyor of misinformation is our media about China. Everything they say is a lie. Look at this headline from The Guardian last month. CJ, this is like our propaganda report segment here. It says Xi is seduced by a vision of greater isolation. Something that you often hear all the time. They say this is another one. This is I didn't crop the date on this, unfortunately, but this was last week. See, they talking about the Xi Biden meeting that may help in China's destructive isolation. You see this keyword they keep using? China, isolation, Russian, isolated. Meanwhile, the reality of the situation, does that look like a country that's isolated to you? If you guys don't know, the graph on the bottom is showing that within 20 years, China's became the world's preferred trading partner. Meanwhile, in the West, Xi Biden meeting may help in China's destructive isolation. Xi is seduced with a vision of greater. And I'm showing you guys this just as an example of like the blatant lies they would tell.
Nick,
Mark,
can you put that back up there though? Can you put that back up there? Because that word seduce is a pivotal word in trying to get people to push people a particular way of thinking. That word seduce. I just wanted to point that out. And isolation, I kind of slipped this question in, Nick. Sorry. Yeah, why is isolation paired with China so many times or so often? What is the attempt by Western media to do?
Well, you know, it's very racist. I mean, the whole I don't know if you were going to show the footage of Xi and Xi Jinping. Okay, so I won't preempt it then because I watched it over and over again. It was so wonderful.
We'll get there. Don't worry.
The point of that, all of these attacks on China are racist. And I say this as soon as I say this, somebody said, "Well, there's anti-Black racism in China." Okay. There is in the country I live in also, by the way, but we cannot be under any pretense that these attacks on China are racist. The only white countries are supposed to be on top.
Yes.
And China has made this great leap. They had the great leap forward under Mao. I mean, they really made a great leap in the last 20 or 30 years. Do you know China eliminated extreme poverty? They brought 100 million people out of poverty. This isn't even on the agenda in the U.S. Nobody talks about bringing anybody out of. There was a war on poverty, which succeeded somewhat in the 60s, early 70s. But now it's discredited, and we're supposed to act like it, it was a bad thing. But China is some say it's the second largest economy in the world after the U.S. Some say it's already surpassed the U.S. And that is why the U.S. hates China. It's not about China being communist. They always say the Chinese Communist Party, and it's actually Communist Party of China. It's CPC, by the way.
USC, they love saying that. I'm gonna show you guys an example of that later. They love saying that, but go ahead, Margaret.
I know, because the words communist and Chinese are real. China's not scary enough, so you have to add communist to it.
They like, just in case our audience isn't racist, let's just add the communist part to it.
Right. So a few years ago, these protests in Hong Kong were all ginned up by the United States. The NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, which is the CIA. It's the CIA soft power arm, which sought to destabilize China by destabilizing Hong Kong. Hong Kong is China. Taiwan is China. That's it. That's all. Officially, the U.S. Accepts this one China policy, but they use Hong Kong and they use Taiwan to try to destabilize the power of the Chinese government and the power of its economy. But it's too late. The horse already ran out of the barn. You can try to close the gate now, but also China got a big help from finance capital here. So they said, well, we don't want to make anything anymore, so we'll let the Chinese do that. Or they got China in the World Trade Organization so they could make cheap stuff for toys to sell at Walmart or something. And they took the ball and ran with it. And now there's this buyer's remorse. There's this envy. There's this racist hatred towards China. And China, by the way, wanted to get along with the U.S. They called it the win-win. Basically, you let us make money, you leave us alone, and we won't say anything about the dirt you do all over the world. So when the vote in the UN in 2011 came up to approve this no-fly zone over Libya, China and Russia abstained, which they should not have done, but they did abstain. They wanted to get along. And instead of voting no, as permanent members of the Security Council, they could have done that. But at any rate, so that's where China was. But China, everything the U.S. does to maintain its hegemony backfires. So now China and Russia are like this. What did Xi say about China's relation with Russia? He said, we are better than allies. What's better than an ally? You're going to get married or something? But that tells you. And so, of course, now they're trying to tone down the rhetoric somewhat. So they were all about China's evil, China's evil. So lately they're trying to have conversations, trying to act right. But they're Chinese. You think Xi Jinping is stupid? I don't think so. So they wanted China to be against Russia in Ukraine, and whatever their feelings about it, they're not going to end their alliance with Russia because they know they're next. And they know that the Democrats hate Russia, but the Republicans hate China. The Republicans have won the House. They're already talking about, we're going to stop China from doing all these evil things, making up stories about Chinese police stations. It's like there's no Chinese police stations. It's like they have they have these consular offices around the country which help their citizens with paperwork and so forth. That's what they do. There aren't any Chinese police stations in the United States.
All right, so many great things that Murray touched on, and I went the Chinese secret police is definitely something I wanted to touch on. That's so we see it how we do on time, because I literally got a whole nother segment on that. And if you guys don't know, the right wing is going around everywhere saying that Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and New York liberals allowed Chinese to set up secret police to spy on us and go after people who are soft, and they say this shit on Fox News with a straight dead face, like they reporting news, the Chinese set up secret police in our backyard. It's literally one of the most ridiculous things. I'll touch back on that in a second, because there are a lot of great things that you said there. I'm gonna go back to what you said earlier, to the racist element as well, where a lot of people are just white Americans. They are horrified at the idea of a white country not being on top. And CJ, think about all the videos that we've shown on the channel when they say China poses a grave threat to the United States. And we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because we're black. But that's cold when they, I'm going to show you guys an example right now on Fox News when they be like, China is our biggest threat. China is our biggest threat. How? White Americans, when they watch that, they know what they're talking about. Not a white country on top. That's why they're a threat. That's why we're not supposed to understand it, CJ. They're talking to each other.
They're not talking about us. They're not talking to us.
And once again, I'm gonna show you guys an example, because this is regarding the Trudeau-Xi meeting, and we're gonna play the meeting first. And I'm gonna show you guys the reaction of Fox News afterwards, because Justin Trudeau is he's definitely a right-wing capitalist, but the Republicans hate him. He's like the Hillary Clinton of Canada. They hate him. But they hate China so much that they ran to Justin Trudeau's defense. Like, their hatred of Justin Trudeau, that fake culture war that they do, their hatred of China transcends that. and I kind of spoiling it because we was on that topic. But let's get to the video that I know Mark couldn't wait to break down. And I saw this, this is literally 4 days ago that I saw this. But I was waiting for a good time to break it down, and having Margaret on here is probably the best time to do that. So this is the they had in Indonesia, was it the G7, if I'm getting that right? The meeting of all the significant world leaders.
G20.
G20. Sorry, I got the number wrong. G20, the G20 event, and President Xi the entire time was walking around like the guy with the biggest dick because he is the guy with the biggest dick in the room, and everyone knows it. So this moment was spectacular. I let it play, and I think it speaks for itself. This is the tweet, just so you guys get subtext. It said, this from New York Times, President Xi accused Canada Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of leaking details from an earlier conversation between them to reporters. Now look at Xi completely sunning this guy. Now let's play the video.
Everything we discuss is leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted. If there is sincerity on your part, free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on. Let's create the conditions first.
So there was a lot of people breaking that down, and you guys see how Justin Trudeau went to immediate robot, liberal bullshit talking points. But if you guys couldn't hear it, that was China. G's calling them out. Margaret, I'm very interested in your opinion. What your take on?
Well, it's like, well, here's what happened. Actually, let me go back a couple years to when Trump was president. One of the stupidest things that Trump people did, John Bolton in particular, they got the Chinese to try to arrest the CFO of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou. And the Canadians, being little vassals of the U.S., instead of saying, no, we're not going to arrest Meng Wanzhou, they did. This created a huge international incident. China ended up arresting 2 Canadians. This went on for she was under house arrest in Vancouver. So that's the first thing. So Canada needs to be careful with China because Xi Jinping, and the thing I appreciate about China is they're mature. They're not amateurish. They're smart. And so instead of saying, after you pulled that crap with Meng Wanzhou, we're not talking to you ever. No, they had a meeting with Trudeau. As the translator said, they leaked everything from the meeting to the newspaper. And Xi Jinping was not having it and walked up on him with the camera crew. Did you notice? Did you notice the translator?
That's gangster right there. He was like, that's gangster. He was like, come on, let's go.
And Margaret, there was a lot. I saw a lot of coverage. You see a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys only one clip of corporate media talking about it. But there are a lot of people. They're like, well, I think the G planned this. It was a planned ambush. Yes, that's the point.
Yes, that's gangster. That was gangster right there.
Gangster in a good way. And
yes, of course.
But you see what and Xi Jinping's very measured man, very disciplined. People, I think I'm going to digress a little. It's unfortunate that Americans are not given this information about world leaders that we know about them. Xi Jinping's father was purged by Mao. During the Cultural Revolution, he and other millions of young people were sent to the countryside to work in villages. So he went from being this, pampered elite kid to, digging wells in some little village far from Beijing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he became an engineer, and most of the leaders of China are engineers. They're technical people. We got dumb lawyers like Joe Biden, but anyway. And so this is a man, he applied several times to become a member of the Communist Party. You can't just pay dues and become a member of the Communist Party. So he was rejected more than once, but persevered, climbed the ladder to become the president. And so I wanted to say that. So this is a man who knows his stuff, who's smart, who's disciplined, and he saw this little dumbass Justin Trudeau, and he didn't bitch slap him like he could have, but he did the equivalent of that. He's like, come on, let's go. Brings a translator and a cameraman, and the nerve of Canada after what they did to think that it's okay, but this is the white supremacy again. And of US and Canada and other countries, they cannot stand the fact that they're not on top anymore. China and Russia, there's a whole new axis of power. The U.S. even messed up their relationship with Saudi Arabia, for God's sake. So they're like, don't buy Russian oil. India's like, actually, we're going to buy Russian oil. So what are you going to do about it? India's buying China and Russia. They're doing deals with these countries, and the axis has shifted. And people don't know any of this. And apparently Justin Trudeau's too dumb to know it. So he's going to try to be slick and leak the conversation, and apparently not even tell the truth about what he leaked. But China said, actually, no, dude, things have changed. You're a little pampered rich kid because your father was the prime minister. I call him Obama Jr. He reminds me of Obama. He gets all these.
He's such a weasel, such a fastest little weasel. And I don't play the video again. I'll play the video again.
Let's not forget his blackface. Remember him being in blackface?
Yeah. So, and you make a great point, because despite any disagreements you guys may have of them, no one can say that Vladimir Putin and Xi are not smart people. Vladimir Putin, when you hear him speak, is a very well-spoken. You can obviously tell he reads a lot. You know a lot about geopolitics. Compare that to the United States, where we got dumb Donald Trump. We got half-sleep Joe Biden. We got all these more. You guys ever heard Nancy Pelosi
slogans?
Our leaders, Nancy, and not even just the Trump is the clown show, but everyone is as dumb as Trump. Like, when you listen to Nancy Pelosi speak, Joe Biden speak, Jean-Pierre, any of these liberals, all of them is dumb. All the people that our country is ruled by mediocrity that they got because of their connections. If you come from capital, there's a greater chance of your success. We are ruled by dumb leaders. And once again, even if you dislike these people, when you look at Maduro, when you look at Putin, when you look at Xi, these are competent people.